We want to keep because we like to keep things in the city. So what did we, what happened when we thought about this viaduct? We thought there's a beautiful structure there, there's whizzing cars whizzing by, this is a view from the south, there's cars and mountains, and we thought, what can we do to add to this space? We need people, and how do we add people to this space? We need buildings in between the viaducts. So we started looking at the aerial photos and the Bing maps and whatnot. And we see this dead space, and we don't want dead space in our city. What can we do to activate these dead spaces? So we thought, well, one of the ideas was to perhaps reconnect it with another cycle path through the seawall and up the Rams. But also, what about having residential spaces to go between the viaducts? We have a perfectly good street there. Why don't we change that to a residential street to bring the street level up to the third level? So this is a bit of an imagery of our thinking there. So you actually have an elevated. It's kind of a high line wannabe, but cyclists can kind of cycle through there, and they can have gardens through there, and underneath there you can have that as a community space, or your back garden, or you can have your hanging gardens of Babylons and so forth. So whatever you want it to be. And another couple of ideas that we had was
okay, so a couple of things we were looking at. Those residential structures we were talking about, for a portion of the where the two viaducts are close together, you'd have your 2 or 3 story buildings, and you'd have your front entrance onto the viaduct, and turn the viaduct with traffic calming into sort of a quiet residential street, with also a pipeline going through. The other idea we were looking at was further down towards GM Place. It gets quite wide, and you can actually put I think other people have talked about this as well, put a light roof structure to create covered public event space, gathering space underneath where there's currently, I think, a parking lot for GM Place there. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, there's a couple of other things that we looked at. If we rotate this thing 90. The spaces in between the viaduct structures, and also the spaces around them. There are some interesting elevated spaces, also some berms and hills and whatnot that you're basically completely unaware of as you're zipping right on through there. So the hills on either side could work really well for exhibition space. For instance, you've got some natural amphitheater spaces, but also, since we have all of this streetway going through here, why don't we put smaller extra street areas in between the existing on-ramps, off-ramps, and viaduct space, so that at any point on the viaduct you can actually get from one of the existing structures to one of the other existing structures without having to go all the way down one side and out the other. So that makes it a much wider, much more livable, and a much more flexible space. We would end up holding on to one lane, and here we go.